So tonight, I would like us to begin with talking about tell us about yourself. And we have said that the formula with this question is for you to be able to sell yourself. This is an opportunity the interviewer is giving you to be able to explain to them your capability, the task that you have performed in both Linux and in AWS cloud from day one to now, all the projects we have done. So we have said you're supposed to look through your curriculum and then give a rundown, which is and also it should be high level, so you don't need to go into much detail. That way they get the topics of things you have done, and it should be, and they get the volume also, because if you spend just 1 minute or 1 or 2 minutes introducing yourself, that's very little, especially if you are combining with cloud. That should be like 7 minutes of you talking both Linux and cloud, saying those things that you have done, those things that you have performed. And as we said, not things that you can do. So you should be using terminologies like I've been engaged in projects, I have done, I've performed. Does that make sense? So if you come across anything of that nature, that's how your response should be. You should be talking from day one, beginning your statement by saying your background is infrastructure wise, and these are the responsibilities of things that you have been doing. So if I'm given the opportunity, how will I respond in that situation? So my response will be, thank you very much. My name's John Carl, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce or talk about my skills. My background spans from infrastructure-wise, which means I've been building servers from bare metal at the level of the data center, configuring these servers, making sure that they are hooked up to network. And we don't just build regular or vanilla kind of servers. We build customized servers that with separate partitions that can go through successful audits. These are servers that have partitions like /var/temp/var audit logs, such that even if for security measures, even if a hackers come in, they'll be limited in only that area where they hacked into. These kind of servers are also good for space availability. And since they usually contain logical volumes, which we can always grow them in case they hit 100% threshold. I'm very comfortable navigating the file system structure using commands like cd or absolute paths. I'm very proficient with the VI editor. I'm creating tarballs using the tar command, creating soft links and hard links also. Creating users, user groups, setting up permissions on files, setting up permissions on users, and restrictions also using the shmode and the shown command. I'm also very comfortable using the ACL command, which is access control list. This is a command that gives you high level of permission where you can set permission level only for a single user and make them access a particular file. I'm very comfortable with monitoring the systems by checking processes using top command or PS command, setting up Chrome jobs for automation for tasks that needs to be run and during off hours. I'm very comfortable with bootstrapping and run levels using the systems and command like init. Also very comfortable checking logs when it comes to troubleshooting and setting up grub password for extra layer of security. In our environment, we use Nagios for monitoring. I'm a Nagios expert. We build Nagios from scratch and set up users, set up dashboards, and provide access to other users. Patching is one of those activities which I've been very involved in my environment, as we do this monthly in both dev, test, and prod environment. We also have repository settings which are online that we use to install extra packages in terms of need. I'm very comfortable in setting up NFS, network file system structure, in situations whereby we have users that are both in Linux and in Unix environment, and they need to share files, just like Samba, which is used for both Linux and Windows environment. And this is a little brief history, background history about my skills. However, notwithstanding, I'm also very comfortable working with AWS Cloud provider. I'm very comfortable with handling any tasks around navigating myself around the console, opening up support tickets, setting up strong password policies, setting up multi-factor authentications, and granting access to users at the level of both the console and programmatic access using CLI. I'm also very comfortable creating users and setting up permissions, applying the least privilege attributes when it comes to giving up access at the console. This means that you give access, only the necessary access for people to perform their task. I'm very comfortable building VPCs, setting up both public and private subnets, attaching internet gateway, NAT gateway, editing route tables, setting NACOs, security groups, building instances, and also deleting these resources after when they are no more in use, so as to cut down costs. I'm very comfortable with building storage like S3 in the cloud, whereby customers may need some storage to save data. I'm also very comfortable with setting up classifications when it comes to storage, because sometimes some of these storages are expensive, so we must classify them according to the needs to different storage tiers. I'm also very comfortable building instances, that's virtual machines in the cloud, adding volumes and creating snapshots, also creating golden AMI, which is a replica of an instance that's already running. We usually use these AMIs to build other instances automatically, especially when we are using auto-scaling. Auto-scaling is that service that helps you to create instances automatically as the traffic changes. So if the traffic increases, we can set our environment such that instances will be provisioned to match up with the traffic, and if the traffic drops, those instances will be deleted and to get back to the normal tendency. I'm also very comfortable setting up load balancers in the environment. We have load balancers that all web applications are seated behind. This helps with distributing traffic to our web application. So I've also used services like CloudWatch. I've used services like CloudTrail. I've used services like NAT to provide outbound access to the internet from private subnets, and many other services which I would like to explain depending on your needs and the questions you may have for me. So thank you very much. Oh, okay, good. So how do you think about that presentation? Did anybody time us?
Nice one.
Did it take
That was good, sir.
5 minutes or more?
I think it was like 7 minutes. Thanks. That's
Perfect.
good.
That's the kind of introduction you must introduce yourself so that they hear you and they hear everything that you have taught, because their questions will now based on that. You know, somebody will say, okay, I hear you talk about NFS. What have you done? You know, so you should be able to now sell yourself on that domain. You know, but you just touch NFS and pass, you know, so you don't go into details. And so that's your introduction. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Good. So next question is what is that project that you are most proud of? Now, this question can come up in two ways. They may say, what are you currently working on now? Or they may ask you to tell us about that project you are proud of. You must be able to have had, you know, comfortable topics that you are very fluent, and not the first factor is not just you must have strong topics that have weight. You know, things that they want to hear system engineers they do, like logical volumes. We say those are the kind of topics you should be dealing with when it comes to this question. Network file systems. You know, you want to also talk about patching. You want to talk about building NAGUs. So those are important things you must sell yourself. And as we said, in your current resume, at the end of your professional experience, so for most of you is Dynamic Tech working from this year to present, at the end of that page you must write project and then list down at least 3 projects. So you're going to list down LVM, and you said this is a project in which I was the lead. You list NFS, this is a project which, and you know, you put it in full. network file system. This is the project which I was involved in setting up. You list Nagios. This is a project which we did not have any monitoring tool, and I built and installed and set up Nagios from scratch. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So we need to add those 3 or 4 sentences into your resume. You can also, for example, if it's a job that you are looking at the job description and they are talking about passwordless authentication, they're talking about LVM, they're talking about something. So those are the things that you use to build your project on, because you are calling the attention to see that the things you are looking for a candidate, I already have them. Does that make sense? Yes, so you must include that and be ready to explain yourself and have a conversation. And you guys had the admins last week. They said you must learn how to talk. That's part of getting through the interview preps. I wish some of them were here, so you guys can ask them tough questions about study. How did they manage, to go through with studies? Things that can help you to grasp the concepts. And they're in the forum there. You can reach them privately anytime, ask them questions. That's why they agreed to come assist you guys. Yes, somebody had a question?
I have one, sir.
All right, let's go with the female voice and then come to the male voice.
Yes, sir. When you say we can ask them questions, can we pose a question in our group and they say it? Because
yes.
We can.
Yes, pose the questions in your group.
Okay.
Or you can contact them directly, especially when it comes to like, okay, how did you manage this situation in terms of studies? And I'm nervous. I feel like I don't want to talk. What advice? Leke, you have something to say?
Yes, Alvin. I have this issue. I know I've drew this several times to your attention about junior and senior admins. I've seen like in some job offer, they said we are looking for a senior admin with +5 and +6 years. So are we senior system admin, or
yes,
how will you qualify?
Sure, let me explain junior and senior. So junior admins have in fact, anything that deals with after networking, that's a senior position. Even in your textbooks, when you go, you'll see system administrator, and then you get system engineering in the red textbook. Who can remember?
Yes, sir.
So
yes, I do.
When you are doing engineering tasks, you are not a junior. That's why none of you had a resume that says 2 years or even 3 years. The minimum is 5 and 7 and 8 years. However, some of you will go and reduce it and put 3. We discussed this last week, and Mr. Leke came in and had an experience that he had a conversation with someone. So we have reiterated this several times. You guys have enough skills to answer engineer positions. Admins don't do logical volumes. Admins don't add disk to a system that is running. Those are things that are reserved for engineers. And as you could see, Mr. Leke, on the job description, this says you will be assisting senior admins. Make sense? So
Yes.
when you're in junior position, you handle things like creating users, setting permissions, creating tables. Majority of the time it's monitoring the systems. They just give you access to Nagios, and all what you do there is let them know anytime anything changes to red or to yellow. You inform them and then they resolve it. They give you access to ticketing. Let them know tickets, complaints that are coming in. Somebody will open up a ticket and said, oh, they cannot access the system. Now you'll be able to evaluate that and say, okay, we are taking care of. You'll be the first respondent, because you're the one monitoring tickets. So you'll say, thank you for reaching out. We are looking through your situation and we'll get back to you. Then now you inform the team, the engineers, that, hey, we have a ticket with regards to disk space. We have a ticket in regards to someone who can access the system. Who should I assign this to? So you're more like a help desk, but not the help desk that answers phone call, a help desk in the admin side. Does that make sense?
Correct, correct.
So those things that we did within the first 3 months, no, I think 2, processes, you must also have a good understanding of networking, because you should be able to troubleshoot an issue whereby, a user cannot log in, and you can, you should be able to SSH, so you should be able to SCP. So those are those are system administrative tasks, not even junior system admin. Those are tasks for systems administrators. So you guys are skillful for both system engineering and AWS cloud engineering. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So in this case, we consider ourselves as senior system admins, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, however, we are trying to get into the market to be able to get real life scenarios and build the skills. So sometimes, as I said, the minimum any of you should be asking for salary is $45 an hour. That's the minimum. The skills you possess can take you up to $70 an hour. So if a recruiter is telling you, oh, well, for this position, the maximum we can get is 43, it's left for you to weigh the scenario and say, well, I really want to get to the job market so that I can, really see what it means and how it looks like. It's a contract. You must not be there forever. So you can accept it and spend 6 months there while you are still looking for a better scenario, because all of our contracts termination can be immediate. They're going to tell you in your offer letter, this contract is, what term did they use?
Open-ended?
No, they say something very big grammar. Is contingent to termination at any time as per the client deem it necessary. And they also state that you too, you can go off the contract at any time as you wish. Some people say 2 weeks notification and stuff like that. So yes, you guys are skillful for that. Does that make sense?
Correct, correct.
All right, good. And with the kind of things you do in the cloud, building load balancers, setting up auto scaling, those are not things those are responsibilities of cloud engineering. The only thing we do not possess is DevOps skills, which means we cannot automate a pipeline, which is a continuous deployment process. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Any other question? So we are discussing about projects that you are proud of, that you can use to sell yourself during an interview. And we said you must start with those tasks that are heavyweight. You should not begin by saying recovery road password. That should be, if you're going to mention that, that should be the last thing. But you should be talking of projects that are heavyweight, like NFS, logical volumes, setting up Nagios, patching. Those are things that recruiters want. Those are services that companies want to hear, that the activities you have done, and they are looking for people to perform that. And, and we have said the way you respond to this question is that you create a problem, you provide a suggestion, which is the solution, and then the steps to implement that solution. So let's say, for example, you are posed a question, Mr. Bruno, can you tell us about any moment in your career that you feel accomplished? Or they may ask you, which project are you currently working on? And so say your response should be any of these topics. So let's say you choose to use patching. How will you respond to this question? So you begin by saying, thank you very much. As we have said, you always make sentences. Don't go for yes or no questions. So when they pose a question, you just answer yes or you answer no. Always make sentences, introduce yourself, open up the conversation. That way, by psychology, you are taking you're taking charge of the interview environment, because the person who speaks more during the interview, the tendency of not the implication, the overall evaluation will be that candidate spoke a lot during this interview. You know, you didn't just come and you were quiet and you respond only when you were asked questions. So you begin by, thank you for giving me this opportunity to respond about a project that I'm most proud of, or I respond about the current project which I'm working on. In my current environment at Dynamic Tech, we have one of our clients which I'm supporting, and they had an issue with most of their servers that were not well configured. The customized file systems were not set up individually like /var. Everything was set up under /root. So it was not well built, and they have been failing audits almost for the past 3 years. So most of these file systems fill up to 100% like every 2 weeks, because there was not enough disk space and a lot of things were happening. And whenever they attempt to patch it, it gets filled up the worse, because patching simply means we are bringing in newly installed packages. So when I came to this project, I suggested to upper management that there's a way we can resolve this. 2 ways is either we add extra disks and repartition these systems, and we convert these volumes to logical volumes, so that in case they hit 100% threshold again in the future, we can grow them from the volume group. So these suggestions were looked upon and were widely accepted, and I was given an opportunity to handle this project. So I was involved in rebuilding these systems, whereby we added new volumes onto the systems and converted them to logical volumes. And these are the steps that are involved. Does that make sense up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
for you to perform a logical volume, when an extra disk is inserted into the system, you must make sure that you initialize these disks, because this disk is not available to use at this moment. I use the fdix command to initialize my disks, run this against the device name. Let's say /dev/sdc in this scenario, for example. You now run through your various steps of initializing a disk and then changing the name of from Linux file system to E8, which is for logical volumes, and then went further to explain by creating physical volumes. I create my physical volume by using the PV create, volume group by using a VG create, and logical volume by using the LV create command. By the time you've done all this explanation, the only question they may ask you is, which command will you use to extend? So you should have all of these in your summary notes, such that you can, a single glance should give you that, give you a good memory. Does that make sense? Now, remember your initial explanation was with regards to patching, and patching was filling up those disks where file system were hitting 100% anytime a new patch is introduced. So by the time you set up this and you now create independent /var /tem and all those divisions, patches will now go into those separate new file system you are creating, and everything is not going to be depending on /root again. Awa, is that clear?
Yes, it is.
All right, good. So let's say your example was not logical volumes or patching, because another way they can ask that question is what challenge have you faced at work? So you can, a simple put, if you're still using patching, we had systems that whenever we patched them, they were hitting 100% because those systems were poorly built. So the issue is just you understanding the concept and explaining a narration that suits that scenario. Another good example you want to use if when it talks about Nagios, because we are using the projects that have weight. We are not just when you have done all these 6 months study. It's not for you to go explain recovery root password. Passwordless authentication too is very good. So these are, and you are not bound to explain just one project. Remember, they gave you an open-ended question. So you can ask them, can I have a second project that I'm very proud of? Can I go ahead? Now let them give you the room. They want to, especially if you're sounding interesting, they want to hear more. You know, and how do you, it's just for you to be logical. You have your points jotted down and you're going chronologically. Not, you must not be too detailed, but let it make sense in whoever is listening to you.
Mr. Oben, could you give us a passwordless authentication scenario project?
Good, sure. Yeah, just remind me. So let's do Nagios, okay? Remind me to come with that after Nagios. So let's say you want to talk about Nagios, and we all know what is Nagios used for.
Monitoring and
All right,
system
good.
health.
So we had this environment that had no monitoring tool, which means we had to physically log into any system using PORI to run df-h to see whether file systems are filling up or not. Does that make sense? So imagine you're in an environment with 250 servers. It means you have to open, like, you log into production, you open like 10 PORI and you put in IP addresses and you run df-h and check each and every one of them. So you propose to management that we can install Nagios, you know, purchase a license or a certificate in Nagios company and install this on our environment such that we can monitor these servers and be able to detect incidents that may happen before they occur. Does that make sense? Now, remember, we use the free version of Nagios, but if they have to, as a company, we all remember when we saw the purchase option, correct? Just like when we're building a server, there's a section to register, correct? We said we'll choose to register later. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So by proposing to build a Nagios in your environment, this was widely accepted and a certificate was purchased and you were given this project to handle and you successfully build this from scratch. Now, the Nagios version you install was Nagios XI. And it was a very simple step because you have done this in your previous project. So you simply just run the scripts that were involved, go through the installation procedure, and Nagios was installed. You set up all the host perimeters by running a widget that installed every other servers in your environment to the Nagios master. You are involved with now setting up individual dashboards with restricted permissions. For example, database guys, they could have a dashboard to monitor the database servers. Management has a dashboard to monitor the environment with only read access. Now, it's important for you to make mention that you know how to set restrictions, who can read and who can write by making changes to the configuration of the Nagios server. Does that make sense? So yes, this was set up and your environment finally start monitoring your company now start monitoring the whole environment by using Nagios. License is usually renewed every 1 year. So every other year, a new license is renewed and that just automatically change itself depending on your subscription. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, makes sense.
Yes, so this is the approach when you're talking in any project. As we said, you first of all create a problem. With Nagios, the problem was that they had to log into every system physically, you know, using PORI, and then run df-h to know whether it is filling up. But when Nagios came in with just a single dashboard, you can see who is green and who is red. Is anybody here who has not set up Nagios? Yes, so that would be a good project to use to project yourself when it comes to interviewing. Another good topic you can use, like our requested, is passwordless authentication. Now, we have said that passwordless authentication is not for regular users because that's an audit, that's a security breach. And since we said no user should be able to have a username, and the reason we give them password is such that, and we give them encrypted password, is for security reasons. So you never create a regular user, and make it passwordless login such that when they put their username, they just log into a system. That's very prone to hacking. However, there are scenarios whereby we have certain tasks and we want to automate those tasks using cron jobs. Now, cron jobs are the mundane tool that are inbuilt in Linux for automation. Nowadays, we have things like Ansible, we have Chef, Puppet that have come up and they are performing that task. However, that does not mean cron job is no longer in use. Does that make sense? So when you want to discuss about passwordless authentication, you have to be able to bring in a scenario. You must tie it with cron job, which means we had a job that was supposed that runs every maybe 2 a.m. in 2 a.m. in the morning, and nobody is there at that time. And so we automated this job such that this cron job uses this passwordless user to perform its task. So you're going to come across many applications at work, as we said. When you cut etc shadow, with regular users, you will see the encrypted password. And there are some users that we don't see them with encrypted password. Do we all remember that? So these are users that are using passwordless authentication. Let me share my screen and show you guys what I'm talking about. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So we cut it is a shadow. We see that encrypted password is only for user 1. Can we see that?
Yes.
All of that is encrypted password for user 1. So what are all these users using? We said that the formula is this exclamation sign here. Any user that you see this exclamation sign is passwordless. It means this user has no password. So it means there's a user called cpdom, which is running on this system, and he has no password. However, the good thing is that this user is not being used by any human. Does that make sense?
It's an application user, right?
Perfect. And you also have SSHD. SSH stands for secure shell, and D is the daemon. So it means the daemon that is responsible for SSH is running without password. We also know who is Apache, correct?
Correct.
So these are all users that are running passwordless on this system. However, they are not human readable. They are not being used by any human. Are we clear up to this point?
Correct.
Yes. So for us to discuss, so it's good for you to make your audience understand that opening statement. So for example, if I'm given the opportunity, my response will be, thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain a project which I'm very proud of. One of these is, it was involved in one of my clients at Dynamic Tech that we're supporting. And they had a scenario whereby they had certain tasks that the customer was asking for them to make this data available every 4 hours. So most of the times they were actually running these, need to log into the system, search for these logs. It's actually access logs for whoever is accessing the website. We needed to submit this every 4 hours and tar these logs and send it to them. So I proposed that we could write a script, a bash script that could perform this task, and then tie that to a cron job and set up a passwordless user that script we use to move this tarball around after it has been created. So this was looked upon by upper management and it was approved. And so I was given the opportunity to perform this task. Now, the steps for you to create a passwordless user is to make sure that this user is existing in all of the servers that this cron job needs to run. So if it's living from server 1 to server 2, this user must be created in server 1 and the user must also be in server 2. Now, it's important for me to state here that passwordless authentication should never be created for a root user and should never be created for a regular user, except that regular user is being used by a cron job. So the command to create a passwordless authentication is you first run the ssh-keygene-t RSA command. This will generate a key. This will generate two keys, the public and the private key. Now, this public and the private key will be saved in a .ssh file. You keep your private key and you only share the public key. Now, the second command that you run is the scp-copy-id command, which will be responsible to move this key from your server 1, for example, to the other server where you want this communication to go through smoothly without a passwordless user. This public key will be saved on the other server in a file called authorize_keys. Now, with these, you should be able to SSH without using a password from server 1 to this server 2, which we have moved your public key into.
Is it similar to like process like yum install?
What do you mean by similar?
Like for yum, how you have to go to use Apache to download like repository, online repository from another computer to another one.
No, with that you are doing, but you're accessing an online repository. So that is not similar. With these, when you remember when you do SSH, they'll ask you to enter a password, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So what we are doing is that when you do SSH, they should not ask you for password. So with this in mind, now you can say we now set up a cron jobs and this user and this cron job was being used by this passwordless user to move the tarbals that are being created from server 1 to server 2. Does that make sense, Awa?
Correct.
I thought we did we ever do a project like this? But we can do a quick demo to make this more explicit. So let me share my screen. All right, so we saw this last week, and let's go. Let's say this is a tarball. No, let's say this is
We can see.
oh, let me share my screen then. I thought I'm sharing. Can you see a white screen now?
Correct.
Yes.
All right, good. So we said when you're writing a tarball, what was the first option? The first tar is what?
The command.
No, we have five fields before the command option. So what's the first field? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's the first field? Minutes or hours?
For cron job.
That's
You got
cron
us
job. No,
confused.
you said tarball. You said
Oh,
tarball.
for cron jobs.
For cron job, okay.
Yes, for cron jobs, not for tarball. So what's the first field?
Minutes.
All right, so yes, the first field is minutes.
Hour.
Next.
Hour.
Okay, next.
Day of the month.
Day of the month. Yes.
The month.
Month of the year.
Day of the week.
And the day of the week. and then followed by a command CMD. So in this scenario, let's say we want to create a tarball on every file, the logs that are located in /var log access. So our command will be, so let's forget about this cron job for now. So the first task next is creating a tarball. So we'll do a tar. What will be our command? CVF, correct?
Correct.
And then we're gonna give it a name. So we'll say my archive. Let's just call it my tarball. I will say it must end with a .tar, correct?
Yes.
And where we are creating this tarball is coming from /var /logs/access. So remember, the objective is that we have a customer who is requesting that we give them whoever attempts to log in on the site. Remember, they'll all be captured in a login access. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So by the time we create this tarball, it means this tarball is what contained in these access logs. Is that this tarball is reflection of this access log, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we are standing here in our home directory. So let's make it very clear. This tarball will be created in /home user 01 tarball. So let me edit that so that it's going to be very clear when we are drawing our conclusion. So we want to create this /var in /home user 01. That's the user. We're going to make it passwordless authentication. And let's call this my tarball. Or let's just say my tarball, yes. tar. And this is happening from /var /log/access. Is everybody following?
Yes, sir. But can you explain a little bit why you're using /home and the user while creating this tarball, please, sir?
This is just to tell us the location where we're putting this file after it
Okay.
has been created.
Okay.
So if we decide, remember that's an example. So we can decide and say, let this be created in, if we put just this / what will tell you, where would that be created?
Root.
So it means that after you're done, you should know that you're going to root to go get that tarball. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we want to make it very clear that we are using our home user. Since that's the user, will make passwordless authentication, make it easy, correct?
Okay, sir.
So user 01. So after this has been created, we now need to zip it because tarball is still big, right? So we'll do a dzip of our tarball, which is located in home user 01 / my tarball .tar. So after this, the file that will be running in this directory will be my tarball .gz. Is everybody clear up to this point?
Correct.
So now, if we are going to write our cron job, we're going to come now over our cron job. We said this file should run on 0 hour, 0 minute, and maybe 12. And since we don't have any particular day of the month, we put a star. We don't have any particular day of the day of the month, we put another star. And if it is running from Monday to Sunday, or want it to run only from, somebody is not muted, or we want it to run only from Monday to Friday, which is working days, we can say 1 to 5. And then what is this command doing? We are running an SCP, and so we said you always make sure that you run the absolute part of that command. And if this SCP, we're going to use sbin/SCP. And we know that for SCP to run, we must use a user, correct? Is that correct? So we said we have a user, which is passwordless user 01. And the absolute part of the file we're going to run, it is /home, because we know that's the location. My tarball, no, username, yes, user 01. Then my tarball .tar.gz. I'm sorry about that. Remember, this is the file we are locating now over here. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
You say my tab or and then you put tar at the end again.
Yeah, GZ will follow. It's just that I didn't have enough space. .gz.
Okay, that's good. That's fine.
So let me clean this part so that I can use it. Now our command is not complete because we have to do a robot and then the destination IP. And where is the location where you're gonna drop that? Let's put /temp for now. So with this in mind, this command can run at this time of automation at any time without your interference, because two factors are important. We have the time we have specified. We have a user which we have created passwordless authentication already, and this can always run successfully to this location. Is there anybody here who has difficulty interpreting this? Is this clear? So two things, we must have created our passwordless authenticator, then created a tarball, then we can now run this one. Now we can make this a bigger project by saying we can have the tarball created to automatically while this command move it at this time. So that could be a bash script, right? So you can have two cron jobs running. The first cron job runs and create the tarball. The second cron job comes in and pick up the tarball and does the movement from server 1 to server 2. Does that make sense?
All right.
Yes, sir.
So as I said, making an explanation of this is very important, and you have to be very clear so that your panelists can understand what we are saying with regards to how to create automation and using passwordless authentication. Any other desired topic that you think we should run an example that you need help with? Maybe that's something you desire to use. However, you have been thinking, how can we create a project on this topic?
Yeah, I've been thinking about like the logical volume, because sometimes it gets to some type of steps that I'm thinking like if there's a short way one can make a summary rather than going to like the other steps that we need you to choose from this range to this range. And is there a short way that one can do like in a summarized form for logical volume? I'm having trouble with that, how to summarize it.
Yes, so the formula is just not to go too in depth. For example, skip using the commands, but know the commands, because they can come back and say, what command will you use to extend a logical volume group? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Will you be able to remember the command to give them?
maybe so.
At least you should have that on your summary notes, right?
Yes,
Because in an interview, you should have all your notes in front of you. The issue is that you must not look at them because it's gonna be video. You know, if it is a phone interview, okay, good, you can read from your notes. But if it's video, the summary notes are just there for you to maybe, just a 2-second glance to give you an idea of what is written there. But you cannot be reading from it because you don't want them to know that you're reading. In a phone, if it's a phone interview, you can read from your notes easily. So you have to be able to at least have some things that it has been written down in a point form. That's the only shortcut you can do. That way you can tell them, oh, okay, just like when you insert a disk, it is not available for use. You must make sure that it is initialized by using the fdisk command. From there, you can make a sentence by saying all the necessary options are chosen until when you save and quit. And then you must be able to create logical volumes, create mount points, and give a summary explanation that makes sense. But you have to be ready in case they come for details. Make sense?
correct.
Now, another question that they usually ask when it comes to not logical volume per se, but how to handle disk structures is they will say, please, can you explain the process that is involved when you insert a blank disk into a server until when it is available for use? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's the same thing we have explained. Now you can decide to answer that question in 2 ways. And if you know your game plan, it is a good opportunity to sell yourself by asking them, but not even asking them, telling that there are 2 approaches to this question. You can insert a disk and do standard partitioning and end there, which means if your system hits 100%, you cannot grow those partitions. You can only add another disk again, or you can insert this disk and do logical volumes, which give you an advantage to grow your volume group whenever there's a need for additional space. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're telling them that there are 2 approaches that can use this. So you can explain standard partition, whereby you insert that disk, you create the various device, for example, SDB1, SDB2 for different mount points, create your mount points, mount them, and then VI to HCFS tab, which is very important. You must make mention. You must also make mention the fact that, as a rule of thumb, I always make a backup copy of this file before I venture into editing it. This will make the file systems persistent upon reboot. So it's good to let them know that you can use 2 approaches. Either you do standard partitioning or you explain logical volumes. So, Mr. Leke, the only short way or form is to have your summary notes. However, let it be explicit. Let them hear the sense in what you're explaining when it comes to disk partitioning.
That's good.
So you can say we choose P for primary. That's okay, and select the necessary device values that we want to use. And then you must not say W. You can say W to write, to save it, or P to print, but those details are not very necessary. Let them hear the sense of what you explain.
Okay, that sounds good.
Make a file systems, create mount point, and then run my mount command against the file systems, with the file system against the mount point. Any other question? Any other topic that you feel we should handle? Is something you're interested to build a project on? So as we have said, make sure you're using those projects that have weight, like logical volumes, NFS, and then patching, setting up Nagios, Those are 4 things that should be in everybody's plate. We also said for those who are coming late, in your resume, you must add a line that says projects, and you can list these 4 projects or 3 projects. We also spoke about passwordless authentication, and we have given an example. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So whatever way they bring this question, as we said, they may bring it as a problem. Tell us about a problem you have or a challenge. All what you need is just to tweak this project and let it look like a challenge. For example, there's already a challenge because you're explaining a problem first before you get a solution. And then the proposed steps to accomplish that solution. Very important. Next thing we want to talk about your day-to-day activity. That's usually another opening question that they usually ask. How does your day begins? How do you start your day? And then after that, we're going to discuss the structure of dynamic tech, because you are usually asked, please, can you explain to us how is dynamic tech structure? Is it a firm? Is it an IT school, or is it you guys just do information security supplies? Can you please explain? So we're going to tackle that. So when it comes to my day-to-day activity, they want to find out, because as a junior system admin, you may not be involved with some very serious tasks, and what you explain in this question will help them know how much engaged you are with your company. Does that make sense? Let me take a look at some questions here.
Sense.
Give me a minute, please. Okay, the structure of dynamic tech. Can you tell us about the structure of dynamic tech? So we're going to tackle that. So when it comes to day-to-day, another skill that you are selling here is your ability to you are prompt, you are punctual, which means you go to work on time. You're not a late person, and you take your work serious. Those are the kind of things that they want to find out when you pose this question, because as a system engineer, your day begins, the reason they are paying you is they are paying you the amount of money is because of the care you're providing to the company with regards to looking through their systems. You're making sure that these systems are up and running 24/7. In case anyone goes down, you're the person, you're the first point of contact to be considered, which is POC, point of contact. So sometimes we even have work cell phones. Now, your work cell phone has your work email, which is Outlook, 365 most of the times. So it means every indicators that the servers are spilling out, every notification. For example, if Nagios is hitting, a server is hitting 80%, and we have configured Nagios that send an email to this email address when it hits this threshold, that email comes to you, because most of the time it's a group email that goes to all system admins. So you want to explain to them that your day-to-day starts with you checking your corporate phone or your corporate email on your mobile phone, and whatever task you find there, that's what determines how your day is going to start. So we're going to run a sample question. So we say you check your corporate email, you check your ticketing tool. What's the ticketing tool we say we are using?
ServiceNow.
ServiceNow. Are you guys, some of you using ServiceNow at your job? That's the most popular ticketing tool now. And we say a ticketing tool is just a software or an application that you go there to complain, like clients. Like, for example, your password has expired, you go to ServiceNow and you write, I need my password renewed, and you submit just 2 sentences, and that will be submitted to the admins, and then they will now reach out to you and create you a new password. So a ticketing tool is just a platform where customers lay in their complaints or the challenges or difficulties they are facing with regards to the system, so it can be resolved. Does that make sense? So after you check your corporate email, you check tickets, you check websites. So I'm going to explain each and every of these steps so that we can have a good understanding. And then that way, when we draw a final conclusion, that should make much sense. So when you're checking the ticketing tool, let's say, for example, you come across a ticket that says, we are trying to log into this production server. However, it appears you cannot log in. Now, what is calling your attention in this ticket is the fact that number one is a server in production. We all understand that we have the dev, test, and the prod environment, correct? And in order of importance, the dev is the most is the less vulnerable as compared to production, which is the most vulnerable, which means very important. And so, based on which environment this issue is happening, that will help determine the severity or critical states. If it's a production environment or it's a ticket for a production server, that's not going to be too critical. We can handle that when I get to the office. So that's what helps you in making that determination when it comes to ticketing tool. Next is check websites that run for production. And so you want to click on those websites and see if they open up in the browser. If one fails and does not open, it means you should be checking that server where that site is running on, whether it is up and running, or maybe the services are not running. The next thing you're doing is checking monitoring tool. And what's the name of the monitoring tool we use? Nagios. Now, this monitoring tool is to help you see if any server is having an amber color. What does amber stands for?
Yellow, right?
No, red.
Right.
Amber is red. So, and that will tell you that's a critical state, which means immediate intervention. What does green represent?
Server is good, enough space.
What does yellow tells you?
It's a warning that it's getting threshold, closer to threshold.
All right, good. So you check Nagios and you to check and see servers, and if there's any change of color, and that's how your day begins. With that, now you can either settle for any of the issues you may have found. Maybe you found something in your email, or there was a ticket that was open, or so that's how your day opens up. So if you're posed this question, please, how do you start your day as a system admin? Your response should be, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to respond with regards to how my day begins. As a system admin, we do have work cell phones that have a corporate email. So I start my day by checking my corporate email. This helps me to see if there are any notification or any alerts that cause my attention. And if there are some alerts that deems my attention, for example, a server is down in production, then I should be immediately getting into resolving that issue. If there's nothing with regards that pulls my attention, and then move into checking the ticketing tool. Ticketing tool that we use is ServiceNow. I check if there's any ticket for me or for the team to handle any critical issue. If there's no one, then I move to check also the websites that run on production. One of our responsibilities is to click on these websites to make sure that they are up and running, and making sure none is down. If any of them cannot populate on the browser, I'll then need to start troubleshooting that. immediately. If there's no issue on those, I'll then need to check our monitoring tool, which is Nagios. This gives me an overview of all the servers that are running in that environment. If there's any red, amber, or any green or yellow, that helps me to determine the threshold. Now, it's important for you to know that Nagios is set up with threshold notifications. Anything below 70% will indicate green, and from 71 to 89, we indicate yellow, and above anything from 90 and above will be amber, which means critical and immediate action is needed. Thank you very much. That's easy to replicate, right? So that's how you respond to that question when it comes to your day-to-day task. Any question or concern? All right, so let's move to talking about another question with regards to the structure of dynamic tech. So let me look at, what do I use here? Apps or whiteboard? Okay, whiteboard. All right, I'm gonna share my screen again. Let me see. Can you guys see the whiteboard?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
yes.
good. So we want to respond to the question, this question in regards to, can you walk me through the structure of dynamic tech? Like how is dynamic tech configured? So let's begin, and let's say this head office located in Maryland. Let's make it like a church. So most of you work remotely, which means you're logging in from maybe Atlanta or from, yeah, who are those students who are logging in from Atlanta? Yeah, we have about 3 students. Ella, you're in Atlanta. Joanna, Patience, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Have you guys met yourself?
I didn't know there were others from Atlanta. I'm just finding out.
Of course, you guys don't talk. All right, so somebody is not muted. So the clients that Dynamic Tech support, like the statements we have been making by saying, you know, with regards to one of the clients I was supporting in Dynamic Tech, we have small business administration. It's called SBA. Do you guys know SBA?
Yes, sir.
We also
No.
have,
No.
okay, it's located in DC. You can Google it, SBA. During Corona, that office that was giving all those PPI loans.
Oh, okay. Now they are paying back the money. They arrest some people.
They are forgiving some. And so we also support University of Maryland. We also support Montgomery County. We also support PG County. We also support Department of Justice. These are places where we have students that are working, and we also support FISMA. So in each of these contracts, we have about let's say with SBA, we have 4 system admins here. University of Maryland, we have 4. Montgomery County, we have 6. PG, we have 6. Department of Defense, we have, well, not only admins, but database and other part of the Unix of the IT team. What did we say the IT team is usually made of?
You mean the internet?
For example, if you say my team is made up of 14 members, we say it comprises of database, system admins, system engineers, and project
Network.
managers,
Scrum Master.
network, Scrum Master, network admins, all of that stuff.
DevOps.
So yeah, we are just mentioning, but system admins, okay, or system engineers, their numbers. It's not the whole team, because we said our minimum team average should be between 8 and 14, correct?
Correct.
So if they say you're working, yeah, what's the capacity of the team you are working with? Any number between 8 and 14 is fine. We were 18 in our we're 14 in our teams, or we're 12, or we're 8, which means it comprises of system admins, database, public project managers, Scrum Masters, and software testers. Does that make sense?
Yes. When you say we were maybe between 12, 8 and 14, like, are we going to divide like system admins were like 3 and
No, you don't need to make that division.
Okay.
Because the question they're asking you is, what is the manpower team that you were working with? So we're made up of 12 or 8 or 14. Full stop. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Good. So these are our clients or customers, as we have enumerated, and with Dynamic Tech here. So we say Dynamic Tech. We now have 46 of you guys, system admins, that are working with us. So when you are employed, you are assigned any of these customers to support. Does that make sense? So it's such that if we have, we can have some of you that have never met yourself, but you're working in the same company just because you are supporting with SBA, and you must not know who is working on FISMA. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But you all are under Dynamic Tech. So what happens is, for those who comes to the office, we have situations that they'll say on site. So when they say on site, it means you are working with the customer at the location of the customer. So it means that you're hired by Dynamic Tech. Dynamic Tech is the company paying you, but your desk, you drive to work, but on this customer site. This is where you drive and go to work. So when you say job description and they're saying it is on site, it means you are working with the customer at the office. Does that make sense?
Somehow, so it doesn't mean like Dynamic Tech is acting as a broker, or like?
Yes, we are the one who employed you here. We are the one paying you. We are the one giving you a paycheck every month. But we are telling you that the customer you're going to be supporting is SBA, and this is an on-site position. Does that make sense?
I see. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when you leave home out of these 46 people, you don't drive to Dynamic Tech office, you drive to the customer's location. So you are our representative over there. So that's where you say on site. I'm working on site. It means I'm working with the customer where the customer is located. I'm working on site. If you are remote, it means you are working from home. If they say hybrid, it means you go to the office some days and you work from home some days. Are those terminologies clear?
Yes, it's somehow.
Yes, sir.
I can take it again if it's not clear. So we are saying Dynamic Tech here is the company that hires you. We are the company that does your interview. We are saying that, hey, we have a customer. This is the job description. You'll be building servers, you're doing installation, creating users, set up Apache, and how much do you want us to pay you? You're going to ask how much are we offering? We say we are giving you $55 an hour. I say, okay, good. We send you the offer. You are dealing with Dynamic Tech, correct?
Correct.
We give you the offer, we pay, you say, okay, your start day is tomorrow, you're starting work. And when you start, we tell you that the customer you're going to be supporting is this customer. We say you're going to be supporting PG County. You know, first day of work, and this is an on-site position. This is the address. This is where you go to work. So when you leave home, you are driving to your customer side where you have been assigned your project, where that's where you're hired for. So you're working for PG County, you're supporting this client. However, this Dynamic Tech that is paying you, correct?
Correct.
So just like you say, a broker, the client pay us and we pay you. So this is an example of an on-site position. However, if you say it is remote, it means you stay at home. However, you don't log into Dynamic Tech office. You log into the VPN of this client and perform those same tasks. Are we clear up to this point?
Correct.
All right. So this is just let's go one step further. Let me get this point clear. So we remember our list of clients here. We have SBA, we have PG County, we have Montgomery County, we also have Department of Justice, we have FISMA, University of Maryland. And then we say, this is our head office here. Now, another scenario, especially before COVID, where we want people to, you know, at least come to the office and, you know, we are paying for this rent space, is where we have cubicles or tables for every admin. So in this scenario, we have system admin 1 sitting here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, these are scenarios whereby we have admins that come to the office. However, the job that they are doing in the office is supporting any of these clients that need assistance. Does that make sense? So you can be sitting in the office. Remember, this is home. You are not home, which means you are not working from home. You have driven to the office. You open up your laptop, but you are logging into Department of Justice because that's the client you support. This guy here is logging to FISMA because that's his own client he support. This guy is logging to University of Maryland. That's the client he support. So when you're making that statement, when you are introducing yourself that, or when you're talking about a project and you're saying, we had one of our customers at Dynamic Tech that they did not have monitor system set up, and I proposed that we should build Nagios, you are referring to any of these clients. Does that make sense?
Correct. Makes sense.
So let's put them in red. So when you make that statement, you are referring to, now they may ask you, what's the name of any of these your clients that you're talking about? What would be your response?
Is it a law firm?
Where did you see law firm written here?
It will either be SBA or Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Perfect. Mr. Leke, where did you see law firm written here since we started talking?
You mentioned that some of your clients, law firm, Montgomery, PG County, University of Maryland, and
No, we didn't. I didn't mention law firm. Did anybody hear law firm?
is it something like a
Department of Justice.
your Justice Department? Sorry, yeah.
But this is here DOG. So why didn't you say DOG? So and if you say law firm, they will ask you which law firm, and you start baffling from there because you already now you don't have any law firm up hand.
Yeah, video is not. We are not seeing the. I'm not seeing the what you're right or showing. The video is not showing.
Is anybody seeing my screen?
Yeah, but we can see up to Montgomery. We can't see anything beneath there.
I see.
Underneath that. I don't know if everybody else is saying.
I don't see it. I see only D dynamic. I don't.
I see the PG, I see the DOT.
Oh yeah, I'm sharing the whiteboard, so that's what you guys should be seeing.
So is it possible for you to scroll up a little bit?
Yes, I'm scrolling up. What do you see now?
Still the same thing. So it's just so we can see the bottom, the bottom of the page.
What do you see now?
Are we the ones who have to scroll down? Because I scroll down and I see everything.
Oh,
Can you guys see now? Because if I share like this, that'll be something else.
Okay, now I saw.
You were seeing something else.
Yeah, I was just in the G, not the white. I saw the whiteboard, not it went back.
So which level are we? Can you guys see everything now?
Okay, now I see ADC. This is the arrow. Yeah, I wasn't seeing any. Yeah, now I see it.
Okay. So what were we discussing? What were we addressing at the moment?
We're talking about the DOG. What?
Okay, so yes, when you make that statement by saying one of our clients that I was supporting at Dynamic Tech, you are referring to one of these individuals, one of these clients right here. Listed right here. It could either be University of Maryland, FISMA, DOG, Montgomery County, PG County, or SBA. So if you are asked, how is Dynamic Tech structure? Can you explain to us the structure of Dynamic Tech? Yes, we are an IT consultant firm, which means we hire any IT skill, be it database, system admins, system engineers, cloud engineer, DevOps, and they are being assigned into different clients depending on what you were hired for. So the structure is simple. I was supporting maybe Montgomery County, which is one of our, or University of Maryland, which is one of their clients, but there are many other clients which they support, which is this list we have here. And so we work both on site and remotely at home. Does that make sense? So you want to be able to explain the structure by letting them know that you understand what it means to work on site, which means you are going to the client site, and work from home, which means you have to log into the VPN before you can access the servers. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Now, we were looking at this scenario whereby you drive to the head office over here, and then you can support any of these clients also, because we have scenarios whereby you are giving, so they may ask, so what role were you playing? Were you working on site or were you working remotely? Like somebody like those one in Atlanta, they will say, Dynamic Tech is located in Maryland, MD. How were you supporting Dynamic Tech? How were you working with Dynamic Tech? So your response is simple. You were hired for a remote position, which, however, once in a while, you may be asked to come on site by the client or go for meetings in the head office for trainings. Does that make sense? So when we say go for meetings in the head office for training, which office are we referring to?
Dynamic Tech.
So we say go for on-site on the client once in a while, who is the client?
SBA and the rest.
Okay, good. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you do not understand, we'll conclude that it makes sense. So if you have a question, you speak up so that we can explain more. So this is usually the structure, because they're going to ask this question: how come you're based in Chicago and you're supporting a client in Maryland, or Department of Justice is here, FISMA is here, University of Maryland is here? Yeah, you were hired by Dynamic Tech to support this client remotely. So simply you log into their VPN and you provide whatever services that deem necessary. However, you're expected to fly once in a while to go for training or other activities as they deem necessary. Why are you looking for a new position? It's another question that they may ask. Their response is simple. Now, after COVID, you are required to come on site. Now, there are situations whereby the client can say everybody needs to come on site. So no more remote work. They want everybody. And, with your family situation, you can't move to Maryland at the moment. So that's why you're looking for a new position. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Is ours still in this class? All right, so yes, that's the structure of Dynamic Tech. We hired both for on-site, we hired both for remote, and we have some come to the office while they support remotely, depending on how the needs arises. So for example, they may have a task at SBA. Our system admins here, that are 4 of them, may need some assistance. Maybe they are migrating a new system and they have some difficulty. This task has been keeping them for a month. They can report to the head office or call for assistance, and any of these admins over here can either go there physically or remote login and provide them assistance. So these are people that we can refer to as backup, or they have their own contracts, which they are supporting, but they can always provide help that is coming from other customers. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So those of you interviewing, have you had any question that is related to Dynamic Tech structure? That way you can post that question and then we can respond adequately.
I have had a question, but not really, and they just asked me. We
Sure.
see on your resume that you worked till October or December. What have you been doing ever since you left Dynamic Tech till now?
How come your resume should show to present, correct?
Okay, if it's still present, why do you want to leave? That's the question.
Yeah, good. So we have answered that question. You are looking for, and it's a question they will always ask, especially after an interview. They're trying to relax, calm down the environment. Number 1, you are looking for new opportunities. Number 2, you are looking for new areas of growth. Number 3, you are looking for new challenges. For example, most of you have spent your 5 years or your 6 years only at Dynamic Tech. Nobody wants to stay on one company forever. So you're looking for other areas to improve your skill. You don't want to know only Nagios as a monitoring tool. You also want to learn, work in other companies. So you can tell them, I saw that you guys are using, what's this other tool? It's on your resumes. You start with a D for monitoring. When I remember the name, I'll let you guys know. So you can say, I see that you guys are using this monitoring tool and I'm interested to also learn something new. So those are the kind of reasons you give for your reasons for you're looking for a new opportunity. As I said, number 1, looking for new challenges. you're looking for new experiences to build, and third, you're looking for ways to improve or build your skills. So your resume should always show that you are working till present, because that gaps, for example, you stop working in December up to now, it does not project a good gives a good connotation. It means you have been looking for work for all this long, and how come you have not been hired? Does that make sense? So let it always project that till present. You're actually working, but you're just looking for new opportunities. And as I said, for those who are working from out of state, you know, your statement is always simple. You are being asked to come now on site. And you cannot make it on site. So Ms. Patience, what do we mean by coming on site? How can you explain that? Or what do you understand about in case you're making that explanation or you're using that term? Ms. Patience, are you there? All right, who can help us? Who can explain what we mean by on-site?
I'm here.
Yeah, you want to respond?
On site is where you go to it's the office where you go to the point at the point of the
client. You must
the
use
client.
the
Yeah.
you must
I was
use
going to say patient. I'm sorry.
I beg, not say patience. So
Yeah, the client.
you need to get used to these terminologies, you know, because just imagine they ask you this simple question and you have to, you know, baffle some. They already start thinking something is not right here, you know. So the client site is where you say you're going on site, and remote means you're remote logging in from anywhere or any part of the world.
Yes.
Ms. Pearl, are you clear with that? Any other question?
But can one just say a client instead of, if you forget on-site, just say client?
Yes, you can say client, you know, but remember the question is with regards to on-site. And you're the one, yeah, you can say customer too. And you're the one to explain if you are being asked what's dynamic text structure, or how were you performing your task, or why are you looking for a new opportunity? So you're the one to make the explanation. So you should be able to remember why you are looking for a new opportunity. What were the 3 reasons we gave?
New
For growth, for new challenges, and
distance, remote, have on-site to work on-site.
So Munya, if you are asked, please, can you tell us why you're looking for a new opportunity, or why do you looking for a change? What will be your response?
I'll say thank you for this opportunity you've given me. I'm looking for new opportunities because I've been working with Dynamic Tech for quite a long time. So I'm looking for a new opportunity for growth, to encounter new challenges, to improve and to build my skills.
Perfect. That's it. You don't need to prolong it. That's clear. I like the fact that you made a sentence, and you also stated that you have been in Dynamic Tech for a while, a long time. That's taking over, you know. So that's a perfect response. Did we all get that?
Yes, but what if Dynamic Tech pays you better than the new people that you want to go?
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, if the salary Dynamic Tech
So
is
why are you interviewing?
that's why I said if the people are not convinced enough to say, how can you leave
They don't know what
You're not going to tell them how much
salary.
they pay
You
you.
don't talk salary in an interview.
Yeah.
So don't go there and you start asking, how much are you gonna pay me?
No, you're not asking.
So in which content are you bringing payment?
Let me say, if for example they ask you how much you're paid in your current position,
Okay, they're not gonna ask that in an interview.
Okay. And another one thing also, if you are looking for a remote job like somewhere far away and you forgot, you already told them that you can relocate, you can go there, and now they ask you, but you talk about dynamic tech as a distance, and we are also in a faraway place. How are you going to reconcile these two?
What's your question? Phrase your question again.
No, the question was, I'm like, we should be careful because sometimes you may apply for a job from faraway place, and then you mistakenly say that one of the reasons is that the job requires that I should come to office, and maybe this other one that you are being interviewed, they also want you to be on, you'll be like in person.
So what's your question? If I'm trying to understand you, you are
My
contradicting yourself now. If you are saying the reason I'm leaving Dynamic Tech is because I don't want to go to the office, and then you're going to apply for an office position that also far from you, that's just uselessness, correct?
No, that's why I say we should be careful because sometimes one can mistakenly go and set yourself up after you're applying for a job. You know, this job is good, that'll be in person, and they'll be asked, why are you leaving Dynamic Tech? And you forgot, you can't say, oh, because they want someone in now after COVID, we need to go in person and I'm far away. And they're like, oh, so we also we are employed for the same distance that you have to come all the way over here. So that's why one thing I'm just like, say we should be careful. If we have to use the option of coming to office in person, then we should know the type of job we apply to if we have to relocate.
All right, thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break and we should be back to round up. We have just like 10 minutes and then we'll be done for the night.
So can I just ask a question real quick, please?
Sure, or should we go for the 10 minutes and just close? If you guys don't need a break.
Yeah, better. We'll go to...
Close, sir.
All right, go ahead, Munya.
So my question is not, it has nothing to do with Linux. So but it has something to do with working remotely.
Sure, go ahead.
So, sir, if you're working remotely and let's say you're in Delaware and your job is in New York and you're working remotely, do you have to pay, when you get paid, do they have to cut New York tax and Delaware tax at the same time, or just New York tax?
They cut just they cut Delaware tax because you're working from home. If you're going to the office, they'll cut New York tax.
Oh, so they'll cut Delaware tax and New York tax at the same time?
I said they're gonna cut Delaware tax because you're working from home.
Okay, okay.
If you're going to the office, they'll cut New York tax.
Okay.
And then in your form also, you also they ask you the client you're supporting where no, they're gonna cut New York tax because the client, the person you're working for is in New York. Now, if the company you are supporting, for example, Dynamic Tech is in Maryland, you are residing in New York and you're residing in Delaware, and you're working for one of our clients, which is based in New York. Do you understand my narration?
Yes, sir.
So I repeat, you're working for Dynamic Tech based in Maryland, you're resident in Delaware, you're supporting a customer remotely, which is based in New York. Where will you pay tax from? You're paying tax for the customer you're supporting, which is based in New York.
New York.
However, they may cut taxes for you in Delaware, which is a place of residence, but those taxes will be refunded during tax season.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are going to talk about behavioral questions next week. For example, how do you handle pressure? Because there are some interviews, you do behavioral interviews that deals with human resource first. They want to ask you, how do you handle pressure? How do you prioritize your work? How do you deal with difficult colleagues? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So you should be able to know how to respond. So those are things we'll be discussing next week. And then we'll also be discussing disaster recovery, because after an interview, you should be able to, they always ask you, do you have a question for us? And if we are not careful, we don't want you guys to go ask a question about how much will you be paying me, or when am I starting work? So you have to stay professional, and there are some questions are formatted such that those are questions you use for such a response. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so you have to be very formal with that response and how you what do you say in that scenario? So let me see what else do we need to tackle for the night. So describe your environment. Have we discussed about that? So we said you must be able to respond to this question by talking about, we have both the TEF, the DES, the test, and you can also have some environments. You have what they call pre-prod. So before production, and you have QA, qualitative analysis, which is the same thing as test. However, we want to limit it to dev, test, and production. And so when you are asked this question, you should be able to explain that we have at Dynamic Tech, we have 3 environments. We have the dev, we have the test, we have the production environment. Our dev environment comprises of mostly servers that are used by database guys. This is where they build their codes. This is where it's like a playground where everybody have access, both read, write, and execute access. We have very limited limitations, which means it's open to everybody. Most, or if not all, our dev environment is less restricted. As I said, this is where everything is being created, especially in terms of code. This environment also is the first environment we do patch during our patch cycle. Dev servers are being patched first, so that in case there's any catastrophe or anything bad needs to happen from the patches we are applying, if these servers are broken down, then we know there's a problem. We cannot proceed to patch the test. So the dev is where we do all these applications and patch them and test them before we can now move to the test. Our dev environment is usually patched during the week, as I said, because it has, this is internal with little or no traffic. Our test environment is a replica of the dev environment because everything that is created in the dev is being replicated in our test environment. This is where files are being, websites or applications are being tested to see their functionality states before being taken to the final destination, which is our prod. So our test environment is just a replica of our dev environment. Unfortunately, most users in the test environment have only read access, except for system admins or systems engineer that do have both read and write access in all 3 environments. So developers create their code in the dev environment, they move it to the test environment to test it. And if it is functioning well, or they can now continue to prod. If not, they move it back to test, because at the test environment, they cannot write, they have only read access. Now, our production environment is our final destination point for all development codes. This is where our websites are being hosted. Only the system engineers do have access to production environment. And this is very restricted. So you must have an approval if you have to log into any of these servers. Our production environment is usually patched during the weekends where there's little or no traffic. And that is because all the environments have been patched and production is usually the last. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your approach when it comes to describing the 3 environments that we support in any of our clients as listed above.
I have a question about patching.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the patching of dev, are there no situations where some applications that we have to update is only limited to production environment and not only test, because not only development, because we say dev is where we first start to test some application. If they move well, then we can update it in the test and the production environment. So I want to know if are there not some application that we only use in the production environment. How do we do in terms of patching?
Anything before anything gets to production, it must go through dev, test, and prod. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean like update, like patching. If some
So,
any
so as I said, before everything is patched in prod, it must have been patched in dev. Does that answer your question?
not completely.
Okay, so ask the question.
So
Let
the
me
question
understand.
is that maybe in the production environment there are
No,
some.
no, don't use maybe. Just ask the question.
My question is that are there not applications that is you can only find them only in the production environment that is not in the dev?
Okay, so my answer is no. There's no application that is in. That's why I said before anything gets to prod, it must be gone through dev. So for every application, and I made this statement that our test is a replica of the dev, which means any application that is running on dev is the same application that is running on test, and it's the same application that is running on production, because before it gets to production, where was it developed? It was developed in the dev, correct?
Yeah, in the dev.
And tested in in the test, and then
Yeah.
moved to production because they found out that it is correct now. Make sense?
Correct.
So anything that is in production must have gone through dev, test before it gets to prod.
So
Okay.
please, can you?
Yes, Munya, go ahead.
So please, can you repeat the statement where you said patching in the prod environment? You said patching during the weekend when there is little or no. I didn't get the last part.
Little or no traffic. Traffic means that users are not logging to the website. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So, for example, let's say we have a training website, like like most of you who are nurses, you do your yearly trainings. So these sites run on production servers, and so most of the times during the week, everybody is logging in on those sites to do their trainings, and so it's busy. But during weekends, nobody logging there. So that's the traffic we are referring to, when nobody is logging into, because weekends everybody's at home, right? Yeah. Any other question? We're running up for the night. All right, good. So if there are no questions, we see you next week. I'll be sending out the recording on our YouTube channel. Please make sure you have subscribed so that you can have access to those videos. And then we'll be discussing behavioral questions next week, and also disaster recovery plan. What question you should be able to ask after the interview is finished. Is that clear?
Clear. Thank you.
All right,
So
thank
sir,
you.
no class on Thursday.
No class on Thursday. I'm traveling.
Okay.
You guys have a good night, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir. God bless
God
you.
bless.
Thank
God
you.
bless you too.
Thank you, sir.
God bless.
Thank you.